YouTube, happy Saturday. We're back for another pause after a couple week pause for me as I was out of the country, Scotland and Ireland. Had an amazing time. So much good inspiration. So it's good to be back. Thank you for, jumping on and hanging out with me. My name is Robin McClendon. For those of you who may not know me, just coming across this video for the first time, I love focusing on this year through our pauses has been just regulating our nervous system through just creativity and just Zen practices and definitely awareness. Awareness is the largest part of change and controlling those things in our lives, right? So just becoming aware of so many things that we have on automatic can right there change the climate of your entire life and how you're connecting to it. So today we are going to focus on pause 35, which is poetry of process. Yes, poetry of process. So let's jump in and talk about it. I got my journal right here. It's interesting because I have a few notes because a lot of this has to do with how we observe the way we're moving through our days, which is what the pauses are all about, right? It's all that downtime in between the bigger things that we're getting ready to do. And a lot of times we just discount all of that time, right? And many of you who've been on this journey with me since January, you've increased your awareness exponentially as I have. I'm on this journey with you and I'm just leveling up. I'm so excited. This is amazing. But what happens is that when we fall out of awareness and we just kind of get onto the automatic thing, we really don't get the opportunity to take advantage of the magic that's all around us. In fact, to use the word magical may even sound weird to your ears right now. Like, Robin, where's the magic? But honestly, it's everywhere. It's just in these small moments when we really take the time to look at what we're doing, and when we can actually allow ourselves to internalize our focus and sort of push the world out, there's even more of it. I mean, it's just those happy moments, those little synchronicities. It's being excited that a really difficult herb that we've been trying to grow actually started growing. I know that because I have ones that are so difficult to grow here in the Southwest. And when something starts surviving, I get really excited about it. But that's magic. It's like, wow, I got something to work that hadn't been working. And, I think as we focus in and look at those things that are happening, we have a tendency to really see it as magical. So what does poetry have to do with this? When I discovered this idea, and it's not one that's new to me, but it's one that started coming back up even working through this journal, is when I kind of get into that flow of creating. We all know what that feels like. And you really start shutting the world out, right? And that intensity and that flow begins, and that passion and that happiness, that feeling we get when we're just deep into enjoying what we're doing. A lot of times what I've noticed, I'll have thoughts started flowing through my mind. And you probably, if you think about, if you're aware of this, then you've already noted it. And if you haven't, sort of like stop in this moment as I'm talking and just think back to when you are working. You have all these random they seem random. They seem dislocated from a steady stream of consciousness. But what I started doing years ago, I would just write these little thoughts, these few words down on my, my extra paper that you put on your desk to cover things, and I would just scribble things on there. And when I went back sometimes to read them, even if I was getting ready to use that paper to stain it or to, it's got all this good stuff on, I want to get ready to use it. And I look down and look at what I wrote, and it was very poetic because it's like disconnected in a way that poetry is, but yet it makes so much sense. And sometimes with the distillation of words, it's even a little bit more impactful. So definitely the right brain will bring up thoughts and information in that more poetic, more creative flow, where the left brain is going to kind of bring it up more, analytical, a little more structured. So I started using those snippets of thoughts and stuff in my books, in my work. And they were very poetic. It just had a different kind of voice and sound to it than if I focused in and said, okay, I'm trying to write this, what am I going to say? So that was the first thing that really came into my understanding about this idea that this process produces a poetry. Now, it could literally be words, but it could also just be just the way you're moving through the creative process. It could just be how you set up your work environment. Like when you start really working and you look around, sometimes my studio, I exist in chaos, but it's a poetic chaos, right? I know where everything is. It's like these good looking stacks and stuff everywhere, and it's blending together, and I love it. I love flat lays. I oftentimes will take pictures of it. So it's like this poetic chaos. It doesn't look, that process doesn't just look like pure jumble, right? You can see that there was thought and there was intention behind where things were being laid and how we were kind of grouping stuff together that looked like they would go together, right? And a lot of times that's just happening on a subconscious level. So with Pause 35, I invite you to maybe not only make those observations to see how that's coming up for you, but just look at how you're creating. What does your processes look like? Don't look at it like, oh, it's a mess. And, you stress out about, oh, I really need to try to clean this up. But look at how you're creating that mess. Look at what it's looking like. Take pictures of it. Get your phone and just take snippets of it, like flat lays. You will be surprised at how poetic the arrangement of everything is. The other thing I want to say on this is that there's actually, from, the study of neurology, there is actually scientific work to back this, in that what neurologists have found is when we get into a flow, when we get into the joy of creating whatever it is, it could be cooking, it can be gardening, it's all these things that we do that puts us in this creative space. We literally disconnect from the world. And that disconnecting, Jung talks about, there is the collective mass consciousness or the collective unconsciousness. They can be said a number of different ways. And we're tied to that. Like it or not, we are tied to that. So when we don't use awareness as we're doing these pauses to stop and really consciously see what we're doing and how we're doing it, and intentionally create and pay attention to how we are moving through our space, we can still get caught up in the collective unconscious, that mass field of the consciousness. And what that does is it sort of keeps us tied to the news, to the anger, to the this, to the that that's happened, to the politicians, to the government, to, oh my goodness. As we've said before, none of it we can change unless we decide to kind of be a part of a movement or something like that, and and we elect to go do something with that time that's in alignment with our beliefs. Everything else, we're just tied into the unified field that Jung talked about, and that field is controlling us. So when we do our art, when we get into our creative moments, when we do our social media fast, when we, put our cell phones down and we turn on a CD, right? And we listen to music the old fashioned way, or we just disconnect from our phones, literally, we actually change that relationship that we have to that field of the collective unconscious. And we gain a little agency in there that allows us to be happier, to be more in our own energy field. Maybe you guys have heard of chakra systems or our energy bubble. When we kind of pull back, we kind of pull ourselves back into that bubble. And there's this protection, it's a protective field that allows us to find the magic, to literally regulate our nervous systems, you know, because we're not plugged in out there, even in an unconscious way or subconsciously. We're just plugged out there when we don't decide to disconnect. So it's crazy because it's a real thing, this idea of the mass, collective field of consciousness. So I just invite you to kind of just mull that around, sort of think about it as you're working. For me, this was the page that I did, and it was something about, that particular figure was very monk-like, right? And very contemplative. And so I really, really liked that. So I cut him out. And this time I put my scripting behind the overall paper. And actually this paper that I used here is actually a piece of waste paper from my table that then I coffee stained. Because I keep a lot of that. I like all the little drippings and stuff that happens on them. And on previously I had done this window, so I kind of worked around it so that you could still see through where we had done the pause on repeating and sort of repetition, the beauty of that. So yeah, I really liked the way that turned out, and it just has it has the beautiful poetry in itself. So the journal's coming along. We only have I only have a few pages left in here. We have a few more weeks, and I mean that's all I have left. So we're in good shape here for the end of the year. Alrighty, I think that's everything. Yeah. Poetry of process. Look at your process maybe a little bit more through your right brain and just see what comes up for you. And just take notes. Just scribble things down. Just observe. Be an observer of it. Like, I think you don't have to, a lot of times you don't have to do anything else but just observe it. Like, have it come into your awareness and just see what comes up for you. So yeah, as we continue to regulate these nervous systems, because the world is not regulating it for us currently, so we have to take it back and have fun doing it in our studios, in our homes, with our families, creating and enjoying life, and yeah, having a good time. So until next week, for Pause 36, enjoy your studio time, enjoy your family, and thank you for hanging out with me. And put comments below on what poetry of process is for you. If you've thought about it before, if you've had experiences around what I've shared here today, what that looks like for you. I always love the comments, and I'm always interested in hearing what you all have to say. So again, thank you, and until next week, take care.